Welcome to Techopia Live. For those of you that's joining us here on our Facebook page, thank you so very much. For those of you that's watching this a little bit later on, thank you once again for joining us as we showcase what's happening with regards to tech right here in the city. Today we are going to get into it straight away because not only is it actually very appropriate because it's summertime and the skies are blue, we are going to talk a little bit about the skies today, and we're going to talk about everything drone related. We have two companies here today. Two gentlemen that is going to share with us a little bit more how this industry is changing, what's happening within this industry. We've heard so much about drones over the last few years, more so than ever before. But the funny thing is it's been around for quite some time. And that's why today we have both an established company and a new startup company that's been around now for 9-10 months, yes. That's going to showcase a little bit more of what's happening within this industry. So let's start things up. Firstly, Ian, thank you here of ING Robotic Aviation. Thank you very much for being here. And Uzayr, which is also the founder of DroneEntry. Thank you so much for being here today. So I'm going to take a moment and I'm just going to pass it straight to you to firstly give us some insight with regards to what your company is about, what you are specializing specifically within the drone industry. We'll start with you, Ian.
Thanks very much, Carl. This is a great honor to be here on the show and talk about my favorite subject. This is, I'm going into my 22nd year of and working in the drone field. So yes, it has been around for a long time. And what we see just globally is the shift from what was military is now commercial, which is wonderful from a technology point of view, challenging for governments. So ING has been around since 2001. I've been actually working with Transport Canada and the military in this field since 1996. So coming up on 22 years. Really seen a lot of changes. My job, of course, as CEO, CTO, founder, owner, is to make sure we stay ahead and in a place where other people aren't. So our specific focus is in what I call data-centric, because we're really out to collect data. So we're not in the business of an air show. It's that you don't get paid for air shows. So data-centric. We carry some exceptionally exotic sensors, everything from real-time gamma radiation sensors, aeromagnetic sensors, whatever. Robotic aviation. I use that term specifically. I don't talk about drones or us. I talk about where this industry is going is into robots that fly, and we fly them today. So there's a certain level of capability today, much more coming, and you see that reflected in the autonomous car world, right? In harsh conditions. So we live in Canada. I have to operate every day I can. But this is aviation, so it's tough, right? So we need to operate in conditions that we find commonly across our nation, from sea to sea to sea, up in the Arctic. And so you have to put aviation discipline with a robot to make it all work. And that's kind of what we do today. So we're focused on defense and public safety. We're focused, which includes particularly emergency response. We're focused on the higher end, more challenging problems like exploration. So whether in the mining industry or oil and gas. The environmental side. So DFO, our Department of Fisheries and Oceans, is using one of our systems to look at seals and whales. Whales are just in the news right now, right? So this ability to go out and get really good data with a robust system is where we focus. So today we have 4 systems. 2 you'll see on the website that we actually publicly acknowledge. But we have a rotorcraft, which flies for about 45 minutes. We have a fixed wing aircraft that'll fly for 8 hours, and we've got new ones that will fly for 24 hours. So lots of innovation going on right here in Ottawa.
Thanks, Carlo. Thanks for having me. So my name is Uzayr, DroneEntry founder. The idea behind DroneEntry was basically to build a social platform. Because now it's coming from military to commercial, a lot more drone pilots are being engaged in the sky. So what I really wanted to do was to create a platform where that helps them authenticate themselves and maybe even connect with other drone pilots across the globe, perhaps, and learn. Speaking from the market perspective, a lot of hobbyists, especially that come to our website, they want to transition to a commercial pilot, but they don't have the means of learning and understanding. And one thing that is missing from this industry, and Ian can definitely say yes for that, is knowledge and awareness with respect to regulation or even trying to fly a drone. Because it's become as easy as buying a drone from Best Buy or Amazon, there's no authentication or even referencing process that's being done. So with this platform, that's what we're trying to create, is a more social approach towards the operators. That is why we have 3 types of users that can come on our platform. Either it can be a hobbyist pilot or a commercial pilot, and an organization that would like to target those specific pilots. And if you scroll down, you can actually see the dashboard that we're trying to build. And there will be a dashboard for, oh, yeah, there you go. So the set of skills that I can showcase, that what I'm good at, any particular software that I know, Pix4D, whatever you want to call it, and any type of drone, rotary or a custom drone. For example, if they build an ING robotic drone, then they can showcase that, or any particular type of software they know. And towards a little more towards the project. So if it is a project related to inspection of bridges, or even forest fire tracking if there is required, we're asking the pilots to be able to okay with showcasing that, so that people understand what are they working with and how are they working with it. And even to go in more depth, they will be able to actually say what kind of sensors they're using or what kind of cameras they're using in particular. So in a nutshell, if I want to say, I don't want to say it's LinkedIn for drone operators, but it is in a way. It is a LinkedIn giving a much better online presence for drone pilots, because we're having so many now. We need to have that social aspect that keeps that consistent. And that is what DroneEntry is all about right now. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, well, that's wonderful insight, actually, from somebody, once again, that's been in the industry, that's seen it grown and evolve so much, Ian. And then yourself, Uzayr, like, just really jumping in there to see, okay, there's so many people now that's interested in it, that is participating in it. How can we connect those individuals to, once again, just improve the quality of service and or drone pilots that's out there in general? So maybe, Ian, you can speak a little bit to this. You have seen both sides, both the military aspect and now the commercial aspect. And you've seen the industry evolve. As we just mentioned before the show started, you know, when you were just 22, which was about 10 years ago, you know, drones they were still running, but they were thousands and thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions for that matter. But it's come so much, not just for the equipment and the technology that's come so far, but also just the overall approach towards drones, and of course, just once again, the regulations that is associated with that. How has the industry, through you eyes, evolved over the last few years?
Sure, that's a great question. So back it was really, I'm not 32, I'm much older than that, so it was 22 years ago. I was fairly, yeah, I've been doing this a long time. Funnily enough, things you still keep going. Exactly. Back in 2001-2, when I founded Unmanned Systems Canada, in one of the focal points, and we had our first conference, I think it was in 2003, and I was adamant that we would have, we all were, a commercial day and a military day. Up to that point, mostly all we saw was military. And I was very keen that we expose the problems of Canadian problems of resource sector, whatever, to the Canadian and global robotics group or unmanned systems group to say, here are our problems. And it was a real challenge in those days because, you know, I've phoned up someone from, say, Hydro-Quebec, or they go, well, we don't. I said, yeah, but you have problems. I want you to come talk about your problem to these 200 people who then will go away and think about and solve that, start to solve that problem. And we've seen that evolve. Now, what's happened is, of course, Moore's Law, the application thereof, right? So today, you can pick up a drone, you know, probably for $10. It's all the same for the multi-rotors, right? It's a very simple piece of hardware, circuitry. It's easy to get flying, so it's cheap. So it's become a consumer product. This has been challenging from a regulatory point of view because, in Canada, Transport Canada is required to regulate this. And I've worked with them since '96 on this problem space, and it just, like every other technological advance, has gotten ahead of them. Right? So you see it in cell phones, we see it in CRTC for channel programming, we see it in drones. The fact that now there are 6 times as many drones flying in Canada by Transport Canada's estimate than registered aircraft in Canada. So how did that happen? Well, that had nothing to do with the government. That is just pure commercialism. Someone figured out how to make a cheap quadcopter. We got power, we got an autopilot, we got an electric speed controller, we got motors. We go fast enough, it'll fly. Well, as Uzayr said, you walk into Best Buy, you walk out, and you're a pilot. Before, this wasn't an issue, because if I wanted to learn to fly, and as I did when I was a young lad, I went to the local flying club. I took ground school. I sat in a plane with a pilot, and eventually, if I flew enough and I didn't kill him, he would let me fly by myself. Today, you walk out in the parking lot. There's still power in your battery. You take the box out. You're in the air. What you don't know is that you're now on the path of that 777 coming into Ottawa. That's how it's changed, and it changed dramatically. And the other dimension of this is. We mentioned, or we were talking earlier about Jeff Bezos, when he said, mostly for, I think, a publicity stunt, we're going to deliver packages, right? Well, sure, I can deliver packages today, but that wasn't the point. Drones suddenly went from spy drones, killer drones, to cool and a product. So they were on everyone's shopping list and have been for years now. That's why you have over 200,000 of them in Canada. So that's changed. And there's no barrier to entry, which is why we're seeing all the changes in the rules.
Now, as once again you mentioned, what's wonderful about this is, yes, there is opportunities that it opens up, but there's also a lot of challenges that come along with this accessibility or this low barrier to entry. For yourself, is there, being in this community that you wanted to create, yes, you wanted to create an opportunity for these pilots to create a profile and share information, and as you say, to get knowledge out there, because that is maybe where there is huge lack within this industry more than ever now, especially because it's grown so fast and the knowledge base or content related with it hasn't necessarily kept up with it. So for yourself, just being up and running for a few months now, what have you noticed from feedback, from conversations that's had, and what's probably the best thing that you've realized in creating this community of pilots or wannabe pilots, or even just industry experts that has now come together on this platform?
Overall, what I've understood from every person I've spoken to in this industry, they've said regulations is catching up with technology. Because every day, I'm sure Ian has his R&D department that is building something or the other, and it may or may not fit into the regulatory by Transport Canada or FAA. So catching up is the game that we're playing around, and when you live in a tech world, it's tough sometimes when the government is very slow with the paperwork, and that is what I get from every single person. Even as good as, I'll go back to the example of Best Buy. I mean, not having the knowledge or not having the technology to even share with the pilot when they come by it is seen as a risk for anyone. And actually that disrupts a lot of commercial pilot industry because of that issues. And it's just a cycle of loop where it's slowing down everything. And that is what I understand from it right now, is it's a catching up game right now. And because we have new drones coming out every single day, like the DJI Spark came out, which is basically, you don't have to pilot it. You just, with the gesture of your hand, you're able to fly it. So how on earth, I can't imagine Transport Canada putting that into their regulations in a matter of a few months, because those things take time. And when you have experts like Ian and other commercial companies on board, they're busy guys. I mean, you can't get all of them together in one place sometimes and have that conversation. And that's what I've kind of understood as well. It's tough to have that one goal of conversation. And when you have these hobbyist pilots, sometimes creating new technology, by customizing their drones, it just disrupts a lot of things. So yeah, that's where the catching up is what I feel, and that with DroneEntry, that's what I'm trying to do, is to get everybody together, and you understand, with the more social aspect, people are more engaged to you, but being more restrictive and forceful, nobody's going to come to you. So after doing 8 months of research before DroneEntry, that's the conclusion I came about, and I figured maybe this way there could be a better way of approaching people and trying to understand what they're really trying to do with the drones, and perhaps sharing that on the website. And yeah, that's what I figured. Yeah.
Now, drones by itself, as you said, Ian, yes, it's been part of the military for years and has played a role, but it's also, as we know, become commercialized. It's definitely, as we said, Amazon just said that they were going to deliver packages, and we're still wondering if that's ever going to take place. But that also brings into discussion the artificial intelligence that's associated with these machines and what they can do. I mean, now, once again, as you said, we are piloting, we actually have pilots. And yes, I would almost say that our drones has the ability to adapt the artificial intelligence even faster than autonomous vehicles can, just because, yes, there's restrictions and regulations, but there's also, to a quote unquote, more freedom in that aspect as well. So how can you see the industry, how is drones going to disrupt our industry even more than we think it is currently? Because at the moment we just see it, as you say, maybe from a commercial perspective, from a enjoyment perspective. Most people use it for that purpose, not so much from a surveillance perspective or an emergency perspective, or, as you say, maybe from a research perspective. So how do you see drones changing our day-to-day lives, disrupting technologies and or maybe companies or day-to-day tasks that we do moving forward?
Yeah, thanks very much. So this is a real challenge from a regulatory point of view, in that it comes down to what we call sense and avoid. And so the current regulations that have been in Canada Gazette 1 basically restrict you to going no more, less than a kilometer, looking at something. It's go look at that light pole, right? That's there are lots of point inspection tasks, but to do big tasks, you need to go further. So, for instance, we did. People talk about big data, deep learning. We can't do all that. So we did a task which was to go look, and this is very Canadian, find moose footprints in the snow in a 10 by 2.5 kilometer box. So he imaged that entire thing at the resolution of my thumb, like every pixel, 2 centimeters, right? That's big data, 380 billion pixels, which we boil down to a 64 billion pixel single image with underlying three-dimensional thing. Those are real jobs. You know, in Canada's north, we only can do, we've only mapped it at any level to about 40%. So when I see our Minister of Environment dealing with, we have a huge caribou issue, don't send a helicopter, don't send a manned plane out to do it, send a drone. Oh, but we can't go because it's beyond visual line of sight. And there is a technological solution which goes beyond tweeting safety, right? And that's putting self-identifying. And that's there's a technology transponder which we tell each other where we are. It doesn't matter whether you're manned or unmanned. And again, something that used to be $10,000 is now $1,000 or less, right? So there's a technological solution that could be adopted for the 200,000 drones and the 33,000 manned aircraft, where we tell each other where we are. So we see in ground, in automated cars, we're seeing a lot of push towards, we should tell each other where we are, putting transponders on cars. We can passively see. So there's technology. I'm working with our National Research Council on some of this technology. So we can also add passive, detect the other things in the way and stay out of them. We have the ability to do this today. When we talk about image processing in real time with things like NVIDIA cards and all of that, we have the technology. What we don't have is a rapid way to have that adopted by the Government of Canada, which impacts our ability to export. Like, it really does. We led this field for many, many years. The Americans looked at what we did, found a way to do it under their laws, moved past us. So we're sitting in the Innovation Center. One of the things where Canada needs to move forward is to move forward faster on what we call beyond visual line of sight. So we go beyond me looking at my drone and anything around it, which is important, right, to where we can fly beyond visual line of sight using technology available to us. I just completed a month-long contract in the Caribbean where we did exactly that. The first to do it from an international airport. We have the ability, if our skills are, if we are truly become aviation experts. This is another game. This is a big step up from walking out of Best Buy, right? But for professionals, Canada has been a leader in aviation forever. Aero, bush pilots, helicopters, right? We have this ability to do this, and what we need is fundamentally the government to with this innovation agenda to adopt this and push this. This is one of the things we're really good at, and I don't mean just me. I mean collectively, you're finding a whole social media to collect these people together.
No, I mean, once again, it's fascinating to hear this insight because we hear so much these days. It is, the talk of the town is autonomous vehicles. There's no doubt about it. But as you just mentioned, once again, we've been in this industry for a long time and we've been doing it really, really well. And we have a phenomenal reputation. But it's something that's kind of fallen off the radar of government and/or regulations. But the technology has continued to grow. But it's almost now we have to catch up because do you think though, do we have the ability, yes we have the technology, do we have the infrastructure to support it? Do we need to invest in more infrastructure, better towers, all these fun and exciting things? Because once again, if we want to build a smart city, so to speak, there needs to be the ability to facilitate that. If we want autonomous vehicles, there is a lot of infrastructure that just goes into that, never mind the technology that's associated with that. What's your insight on that?
So the interesting thing is, we have the second largest airspace in the world, right? So, and 99% of it is something called Class G. There is no scope. Someone looking at a scope telling you where to go. That's around our airports, and it's up high, above 18,000 feet. So the technology I was speaking to, I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but it's called ADS-B, Automatic Dependent Surveillance Broadcast, which has two modes. One now Canada uses today for all of the traffic flying transpolar and Atlantic. They use this ADS-B technology for the Air Canada, Lufthansa, all those jets. Well, it turns out the same technology it's an ad hoc radio. So it automatically, there's a local kind of mode where they talk to each other. If they're close enough to each other, they actually talk to each other as well as to anybody else who might be listening. So NAV Canada has a space program, is putting these things up in space with Iridium 1 as a co-payload called Ariane. We don't really need an infrastructure investment. We just need a regulatory impulse. And then these little devices, I mean, I'm literally talking about transponders the size of my thumb, right? Like UAvionics makes a beautiful one, right? So software-defined radio, all of the stuff that, Canada, we're also very good at this stuff too. But it's not about building a building. It's about a regulatory framework change, which our Americans have already adopted. The Americans in Alaska adopted this technology in 1999 and saw a reduction of over 80% of man-on-man accidents. So it's just about, again, how fast can we move the regulatory instruments to allow us to do what we as entrepreneurs and innovators can already do. I have to go offshore to do it.
Okay. No, and I thank you for that insight because I don't think we understand what exactly is in place and how this industry has evolved and how fast it's evolved, and we actually need to catch up. So this is pretty much what this is coming down to. It's time to catch up quickly. For those of you that's watching at the moment, we're talking drones, and we have Ian Glenn here from ING Robotic Aviation. Thank you so much for your insight today as well. Uzayr, that is an entrepreneur that started up a new phenomenal social platform to really bring together drone pilots, drone future pilots, and of course experts to have the discussion and talk, and also I would assume also create the platform where you can have access. If you're looking for drone pilots, where can you find them? Exactly. Yes, exactly. Because we know we can find them at ING, but we also want to find specific drone pilots doing specific things. And so, exactly. So maybe just to kind of close things off, maybe you can just touch on that. Maybe was there, what exactly is the plans for DroneEntry moving forward?
Thanks for asking that question. I get that question a lot when they look at the platform at first. Even though because we're on the beta stage right now, it is growing in the back end side of it. Along with having the online presence for the drone operators or the pilots, we are trying to establish a global community to understand the regulations from different countries. So the future plan would be to obviously there's a term called UTM, unmanned traffic system, and every drone pilot would eventually use any of those systems that is being built by respective countries. So knowing who's using what UTM would be essential in the end. And the data that we may have from that would be much more viable for the other bigger firms who are actually using or building the UTM system. So the future is basically to get into the UTM sector of the industry, but also knowing exactly which drone pilot or the operator will eventually be using that, because it would become a protocol, just as you would have a recycle logo on every drone. They say that there will be there's an organization called Gutma that I'm talking to, and apparently they're trying to build a protocol for all the drones to have that logo on, depending on what UTM system they fly into. I'm not sure about Canada in terms of UTM. I mean, Ian can give a better insight, but talking to people from Switzerland or Singapore or US, our neighbors, or even as far as China, they're all building their own respective UTM systems, and having that as their own respective UTM systems, you want to have that one global platform for that to understand. And that's like in the future for DroneEntry. But right now the focus is to share about DroneEntry, for them to know exactly what we're building right now with the social dashboard for drone operators, so they have a better online presence. And I'm sure Ian's pilots would love this platform to try it out, because they want to show off what they know and what sensors they work with. And that's exactly what we do, is to help show off in a way. Yeah. Thank you.
So there we go. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for sharing your insight. I mean, we could talk about this stuff all day long. There's no doubt about it. I see Ian's just eyes lit up. He's like, I could be here all day long. It's like I've been in this industry for a few years, but I can still talk about it. So thank you so very much for those of you that's joined us today. Make sure that you watch this on techopia.ca. Also, make sure you join us each and every single Monday here at the Innovation Center at Bayview Yards. Also, we want to let you know that coming up this week, we're going to have another episode that's going to take place every Wednesday, taking place from KRP Properties in Canada, where once again, it'll be geared towards tech news. We have so much to talk about. We want to talk about it more frequently, and that's why Techopia Live will go to twice a week. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Lots more information coming your way, lots more discussions, and thank you so much for joining us today. You're welcome. Thank you.